welcome to GlideFast On Air. I'm Lauren Jankowski, the Marketing Manager here at GlideFast, and I'll be moderating today's webinar, PPM Adoption, How to Build a Phased Approach for Engagement Management. I'd like to introduce you to today's presenters, Colleen Cody, the Director of Customer Success at GlideFast Consulting, and Doug Page, the Senior Principal Product Manager at ServiceNow. Before we get started, I'd like to give you some background information on GlideFast Consulting. GlideFast is a consulting firm that is dedicated exclusively to ServiceNow. As an Elite ServiceNow Partner, our expert team of developers and architects have worked on both sides of the table, the customer side and the consulting side. Our company was founded by ServiceNow architects, and we're proud to have a team of over 150 experienced consultants, an average CSAT score of a 4.8 out of 5, and many more accolades, as you can see here. As a perk of attending today's webinar, we'll be giving away a $50 Visa gift card, so be sure to stay on to the end and we'll announce the winner then. Now I'd like to hand things over to Colleen Cody from GlideFast.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. We're very excited to have you. I'm going to start the session today by highlighting some of the features of PPM and how it interacts with the ITBM ServiceNow suite. We're then going to move on to the investment portal and then go into the project workspace, where many of the fields that can be configured for the widgets in the investment portal are pulled from. We'll also then take some time to talk about a few of the KPIs that you can track in each project that are absolutely critical to giving you that view of the overall health of your project, and also the RIDEC items, the risks, issues, decisions, actions, changes that can be tracked within the project portfolio management. And I'll also touch on a few of the highlights for what's new in PPM with the Paris release. And then I'll be turning things over to Doug to give us a walkthrough of some of the areas that we've reviewed. So with that, let me just go ahead. We're going to jump right in here. So project portfolio management. We all know that demands can come from multiple sources from our organization and come from multiple or delivered to us via multiple channels. Portfolio management, as far as the part of the ITBM suite, really provides a way to organize work into different portfolios, providing clear visibility into the strategic alignment. You can priority rank each initiative. We're going to focus a little bit more on the project portfolio management side, the PPM side of the house today, and how you can drill down into critical information on your projects through the project workspace. But also we're going to take some time to look at the investment portal and see how projects are allocated for funding via that avenue. All right, so with that, at the top level, we're going to talk a little bit about the investment portal. The investment portal really does a great job at providing a centralized view to create, view, and share investment status reports with stakeholders and other project team members in your organization. It's a really great interface. You can use the configurable widgets based off of the project fields and demand fields to set up different views that can be shared with those stakeholders and teams. So there's a lot of flexibility in this portal. When I turn things over to Doug, I believe he's going to start there. And then from there, we can kind of drill down into the next areas for project portfolio management. Okay, so project portfolio management really does a tremendous job of, it manages your entire project lifecycle, right from idea to execution across your technology and business portfolios. It's a comprehensive solution. It includes, your project portfolio, resource management, demand management, innovation management, and it incorporates those critical agile development practices across the application. So here you can see a quick view of the project dashboard, and Doug's going to give you a view of that too during our demo here. One of the main benefits that I love about Project Workspace is it increases the visibility and transparency into your project statuses. I can tell you firsthand that I live in this workspace every day, and it's really given my team a great way, a quick view into all of our projects. If they're having issues, it allows us to really collaborate quickly and proactively to address any risks and issues to the health of the project. And that is so important. We were all, I'm sure we're all managing a lot of projects. So it's so important for us to really have that quick view into the health so that we can quickly get together and address any concerns within the project. So one of the things you might be asking is, how can I get quickly up and running with the project workspace? What are some of the fields that I'm really going to want to focus on to make sure that I can get this kind of view that you see here to get the overall health of my projects? I know sometimes it can seem a little bit overwhelming. PPM has so many different areas that you can track. But in our experience, these are the fields that you'll want to focus on that will provide you the most visibility to your project. And Doug's going to go over some of these when we get to that area of the demo. So project status, this is a quick way for you to ascertain the health of your project. Pretty simple, green, yellow, red. It's a manually changed field because we know as engagement managers, as project management professionals, just because you may have an issue on a project or a decision that has to be made or a risk, it doesn't necessarily mean that your project should be in a yellow state or that it's going off the rails in any way. It just might be something that you want to track that you can have conversations on internally before you engage with the client. Percent complete, this is a field that I pay actually very close attention to, as well as how it aligns with the project budget. You can quickly see that if your project is, let's just say only 10% complete via the dashboard, but you're looking at the budget and you're already burned through half of it, that's a bit of a problem. So I would expect to see that project would be in a yellow state. Project phase, along with assessing the percent complete of the project with the budget burn. This is also a great indicator to see which phase you're in and if you're over or under burning against your budget, along with milestone progress, another important field to track the health of the project and make sure that you're tracking to key deliverables within the project. Um, the RIDAC items, I love that Project Workspace displays if there are risks and issues right on the project tiles within the Project Workspace, especially if a project is yellow or red. It's a signal to me that I need to go into that project and really drill down on those items and see where the issues are, and if we need to pull a tiger team together to put some action plans in place. Okay. In a few minutes, as I said, Doug's going to show us where we can find some of these fields within the projects, but this is kind of a quick start checklist in our experience of the different areas of PPM, the different fields in PPM that you would need to kind of pay attention to hit the ground running with your projects and really have a healthy project workspace to refer to. Okay, and just talking a little bit more about the RIDAC items, as I mentioned, sometimes you may open a risk or an issue or a decision. It doesn't necessarily mean that your project should be in a yellow or a red state, but certainly we want to make sure that these issues are tracked. We're not going to show you all of these today. They're all actually aligned together within the project, so you can take a look at them, but we'll show you how to do a couple of these. Okay, and just a few items about the highlights of. I just put a few things out here for some of the highlights in the Paris release. One of the things that I love that they did was you can now choose which RIDAC items show up in the project status report. I know that sometimes I want to have some internal conversations, kind of flesh out some more details and action plans before I'm putting that into a status to a client. To raise the level of concern with them that they think there's any action needed on their part. So that was a really great thing thing that came out with a highlight in Paris. Also predating project tasks, that's something that we couldn't do before. And a few of these other areas, multiple templates that you can bring in, you can import different project tasks from multiple projects and different file types. So all of these things have been really great, as well as some changes around resource change management. You can move resource plans when needed without having to reallocate the resources right now directly within the project. You can shift a specific allocation on a plan as needed. You can replace a user with another. It's very easy to do this. And this has really helped in the Paris release to reduce the complexity of resource planning. I know that's always kind of a cumbersome thing for some project managers to get through. Also, there's changes to approve start dates, the ability, like I said, the ability to predate project tasks. And this has really allowed a lot of the project managers to spend less time, on the planning side and having to manage these things in different areas. So a lot of really great highlights here. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Doug here so that he can share some of the areas that we've reviewed here.
So as you had suggested, we're going to start here with the investment portal. And this is a great place for organizations to start to really look at what are the projects that are in flight. Also, to be able to see what are the demands. You can think of demands as business cases that are also part of these portfolios, so that I not only see what's in flight that I'm working on, but what things I can work on. And in this case, this is a great view because at the bottom, I can see one line for every project. And I can scroll back and forth to see relevant information. I can even drill in to see information directly from a status report. And as end users, you can actually configure the fields that you want to see here. You can export to CSV. And if your organization has configured a field to add, let's say, a field to the project for categorization, you can even add that column to the selection list here. So besides having this kind of line by line view of each project and demand below, at the top, you also have widgets that give you summary information. So I can see for this grouping that I've made for the application modernization portfolio, I can see I have 46 investments, 23 are those demands. I also have 23 projects. Of those projects, 18 are green, 3 are yellow, 2 are red. And then I see rolled up information for the budget for those projects as well as the actual cost. And I can save these all out. What's also nice, if you come back to the bottom, is I can create groupings here very easily. So you can see one of the fields that I have here is strategies. So I can actually take that strategy field and just drag it up to say, what work am I doing to support different strategies within the organization? And if I want to, I can even then drag the portfolio field up here. So I can say what portfolios are supporting different business strategies and what work are those portfolios doing. That becomes really useful because this is not just used to say how are the projects and how are they performing, but also as a delivery organization, if someone says, hey, we're having a problem with this specific strategy, you can say, here are the business cases. Those are the the orange circles that we have that have already been defined. So you can actually identify work that could be undertaken that could help support the organization. There's another couple tabs here. The next one is the timeline tab. And this is a great view showing this kind of classic Gantt chart view. And it's going to sort these automatically to show the earliest start to the latest start. So you can see what work is happening throughout time that we're working on for this grouping of projects. So that gives us, between those two tabs, a really good understanding of what work we're doing and to understand the work that goes on within those projects, because you can actually expand these to see what Colleen had mentioned around the milestones that you want to be able to track. So it's important to set those up on your project. Now, speaking of setting up on your project, we've got a lot of great information here. Let's jump into the projects to see how we manage this in a simple way. And the place that you go to do that is the project workspace. And here you can set up filters to see different groupings of projects. So if you're a project manager, you might just want to see your projects. If you're a portfolio manager, you could see all the projects in your portfolio. And as Colleen had said, you could actually use this as a dashboard to see, as each project is a tile here, you easily see the color coding to show you the status of that project. I can see the execution type, so I can see waterfall, hybrid projects, even projects that are 100% agile. But in this case, we're still using the project object as an envelope for those, because a lot of organizations are still funding initiatives, even if they're using agile methodologies to execute that work. And then if you drill into one of these projects, there's some different information that we're going to want to manage. Colleen mentioned some of the most important ones. So for instance, your percent complete, the phase where we are in the execution. You can also see this phase up above here in these chevrons. There's other pieces of information that are also important. And this is not information that's going to change very often on your project, but things that are going to be very useful from a categorization perspective that we saw in the investment portal. And we're going to see in some reports in a minute. So things like, what portfolio does this belong to? Does it belong to a program? What's the investment class and the investment type? So if you're using kind of a Gartner run, grow, change, you can categorize your project work by that. Who's the business unit that we're doing this work for? Also, under the business case tab here, we can identify the strategies and the goals that this project that belongs to. So these are all things that are relatively simple to understand and to categorize, and that's really going to help us with our reporting. The next piece that we'll want to do is to come under planning and be able to at least put together a simple project plan that will identify the high level tasks, the deliverables, the milestones for this project. And it's also a good idea to be able to baseline. When we create that and we agree, hey, this is the plan we're going to try and work to, do a simple baselining of that. So as those plans change when you go into the future, at least you'll have a variance to be able to say, is this project late? And you'll be able to report on that out of the box. The other things that you can do from here as a PM is to create and view your status reports. So it's very easy to create these reports. Some of this information is going to be populated directly from ServiceNow. That's going to know, for instance, the start and end date, percent complete that's already been entered. And then you're going to enter what the current status is. And then it will also display for you the historical status as this project has changed over time. How has those status reports changed? And then you're going to see here those key milestones, risks, issues, decisions, actions, and changes, all those things that Colleen had mentioned to you. One of the things that I'll just show you here quickly is that you can manage these status reports as well as all those RIDAC items directly from a mobile device. So you can come into the ServiceNow agent app and you'll be able to see the status report app. So from here, I can see things like critical projects. So if you're using that categorization, you'll be able to come through these projects. And I'm going to find this project that I was looking at. I think it was here. Anyways, we'll just grab one of these and you can come in here and you can see all those status reports that we just saw through the ServiceNow UI. You can take any of those and look at the detail. You can also look at all your RIDAC items, and directly from here, you can create new ones. So if I want to create a new issue, very easy to do from here. I can give this a short description. I can identify what the impact is, for instance. I'm going to say this one's medium, and I can look at the probability. I can say this is absolute, for instance, and I can do all of that directly from the mobile app. So maintaining these, as Colleen had mentioned, is very straightforward and is going to allow for some of that great reporting. Now, a couple other things that I wanted to touch on, besides seeing that information in the investment portal, there's also something that we deliver out of the box called the PMO dashboard, which is going to give you some really good high-level aggregate information with the ability to drill down to see details. So the summary here, and this is a summary, by the way, for everything that you have access to within the platform, or you can filter this by business unit, portfolio, or portfolio manager, or program manager. So for instance, if you wanted to see a portfolio, you would be able to select one or more of these portfolios to be able to look at just the information that's relevant to the person who's looking at this. But it's going to allow you to see things like the projects by business unit, the projects by priority, that investment class, the run, go, change. So a really good breakdown of what work we're doing. There's also a project health tab that's going to allow you to see things like project overdue. That's going to be based on the initial plan that we put together with a simple baseline. doing that status reporting is going to allow us to see what are the projects with red status. You can also see projects with high risk, with critical change requests or critical issues. All this is going to be driven from that very straightforward data that we had put in. Another dashboard that I'll just show quickly is something that was also launched within the Paris timeframe, which is strategic spend tracking. So if you happen to get to the maturity level where you're actually tracking or planning spend, you can then see that by strategy. So the first kind of donut semicircle that we see here is how many projects do I have associated with strategies? We saw how you can simply tag your project to the strategies. And then if I'm tracking cost, I'll be able to see what is that rolled up cost to those strategies. And if I'm actually doing financial benefit for these projects, you'll be able to see those as well. And maybe one last thing that I'll just point at is the scenario planning functionality. So now that you have all these projects in here, with the information that you have, you can start actually building scenarios to say what projects should we be running, and you can select and deselect projects here, and automatically on the right-hand side, you're going to be given very clear visibility into your ability to execute those, whether it's based on financial or resource constraints, and you'll be given visibility into things like unaligned items. Those are projects that aren't aligned to strategies, and where you're going to have over-allocated groups, meaning their utilization is more than 100%. So some really good tools, not just for executing the projects and tracking them, but if you do want to get a little bit more sophisticated, there is very good functionality for actually helping you plan and design your portfolios as well.
All right, well, it looks like it's that time for some questions and answers. So please feel free to send in any questions that you have. Awesome, looks like we have a couple. So the first one, where is the best area to view resources planned versus allocations and demand versus capacity?
There are out-of-the-box resource management reports. We didn't go there today because today was really meant to be the kind of high-level entry point into ITBM. But to the point that you are tracking for each project and demand what those resource requirements would be, a good place to see them is certainly in that portfolio management view. And I didn't even get into it, but there's another tab there that will show you a heat map of the supply and demand by group. And that's a great place to see it because you can actually do your simulations in there and see not just your reality of how that looks like, but what it would look like under different scenarios.
Awesome. Someone also just wrote in best practices for build-up projects to tie programs and then portfolios.
So I think within good kind of PMI practices, we separate out or allow you to separate out the program from the portfolio. But if you need to tie those together through one hierarchy, you can do that as well, just by assigning the program to a portfolio as well. But you could have a project aligned with a specific portfolio and a program assigned with another one. And that's really just a tagging of those projects. It's very straightforward to do that on the platform.
Yep. And even going up another level, you could tie those portfolios to the strategic initiatives. So which Doug showed you in the investment portal as well, which is a great thing to have.
Awesome. Here's another question for you guys. What is the easiest way to change resources on a project?
Do you want me to take that one, Colleen?
Yep, sure. I was going to say resource workbench, but go ahead.
Yeah, so well, there's been some really good improvements for this in Paris, and Colleen, you actually referred to that enhancement that we put into place.
Yep.
This is an area that we found there was too many key clicks for people to make those changes. So there was 3 very similar but distinct functionality changes in Paris. So one is at the resource plan level where you could move that allocation. So if you said this entire team, let's say, or group needs to be moved later, you could do that. And then at the individual resource level, you could shift that allocation just for that individual person. And there's also new functionality to kind of one-click replace somebody, which is something that we all know happens quite a bit. So rather than having just delete that user and add another user, you can just say, hey, I need to replace this person. You select it and you're done.
Awesome. Well, that looks like all the questions that were submitted. And if anyone else has any other questions, feel free to send them to info@glidefast.com. But since that's all the time, I would like to now announce the winner of our $50 Visa gift card. And it looks like the winner is Linda Jones. Congratulations, Linda. we'll email the prize to you directly. I'd like to thank everyone for joining today's webinar. If you enjoyed it, we have 2 more webinars coming up for the rest of this year, so be sure to join those. And to see any of our previous webinars, they're all on glidefast.com. Thank you to Doug Page from ServiceNow for joining us and Colleen Cody from the GlideFast team. Thanks and enjoy the rest of your day.